Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the SH Figuarts Deadpool. You know it's going to be a good review when it starts with a sigh. There's so much good about this figure that the bad stuff is so frustrating. So frustrating. There are some things on this figure which are unacceptable. Despite how good it is, those things are unacceptable. You can decide if that means you're going to get the figure or not. That's totally up to you. But I'm going to have some real problems with it. We're going to talk about the good stuff too, so don't get too worried. But if you were expecting this to just be a home run grand slam, some other sports ball reference, then it's not that. This is more like maybe a double. Maybe a double, I don't know. Okay, let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about, let's say 15.5 centimeters, and that's going to make him pretty close to about 6 1/8 inches, so he is definitely undersized for Marvel Legends. It's not really even close. Let me grab a reference. Here's the undersized Spider-Man, and he dwarfs this Deadpool. So it's not working. You're not cutting it. You're not getting these guys in the same collection. So you're going to be wondering, should I buy this or the Marvel Legends Deadpool that came only in a 2-pack and is probably very expensive now? Well, you're going to have to decide that for yourself. There's a lot going on here. I'm going to talk about all of it as succinctly as I can. But like I said, there is a bunch. So stick around. Pay attention so that you can make your decision with as much information as possible. That's what my reviews are for every time. But in this case, we have two direct competitors. The Marvel Legends one, which was phenomenal in most ways, and this figure, which is really good in most ways. Now, that one you have to pay secondhand pricing for, which does bring it closer in line to the pricing for this guy. So again, you're going to have to weigh out what you like and what you don't. Okay, now before we get into anything else, let's do a quick question of the day. Were you a fan of the Deadpool movies, or were you not? And also, were you a fan of Deadpool before he became so trendy and hip and cool? For me, I liked Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2 I did not enjoy very much. And as far as the other question, I'm still not that big of a fan of Deadpool. I was never really a fan of him at all, but people had me making customs of him in the very beginning of my customizing career, so it's kind of how I cut my teeth in the field. And so I have a certain connection to the character, and it's a fun character, so I like it in that sense, but I'm neither here nor there as far as when he was popular or trendy or not. I'm assuming, I think the customizing thing for Deadpool happened just before he became trendy, so I'm going to take that spot. Okay, let's talk about the aesthetics on this guy. First things first. Every bit of him is covered in some sort of texture or detail. Like, obviously the black parts are smooth, so they're not supposed to have that, but they have wrinkles and things. He's got a nice matte finish, a satin finish on the blacks. It looks really, really good in that sense. The sculpt work is very nice. I like it a whole bunch. The detail work is very good. You can see on the belt, it's all there. It's nice. Lots of details. They did add like a black kind of battle damaged look to scuff him up a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. The only spot where I don't really care for it is the head. Because of the way they did the head, it just has some spots here and there, so the head looks brighter than the rest of the body, which it's not a huge deal, and it may vary from figure to figure, but it could be a little bit more uniform for the head, I think. I don't really like the spots that are on there, but it's not a big deal. It's okay. All in all, it looks pretty good. His peeper piece does appear to be a little bit of a different color. I don't care how they sculpted as far as the articulation goes. It's fine. It looks kind of like the fly on a pair of pants or whatever, but you're going to be able to get your range out of it, so I'm okay with that. You guys can decide if you like it or not, but I don't like that the plastic is a slightly different color. Proportioning is pretty good. Let me zoom out a little bit here. This is based on a real-life human, not the comic itself, so I'm okay with it. I think the arms might be... No, they don't really look too long. I think it's fine. I think it looks pretty darn accurate, as much as I would expect it to, so I'm okay with that. I'm pleased. And so yeah, aesthetically it looks really good, except for one glaring thing. He's missing his freaking guns. The holsters that are on either side are not there. There are peg holes for where they're supposed to be, but they are not there. They were purposely removed. And I've been told that the original photos for this figure had them, and then, like, you don't see them on the packaging here. Like, they're just gone for everything. So that makes sense that they adjusted it. I don't remember. If I can find them, I'll post them in the video. But he doesn't have his guns. I'm guessing because of some BS thing Marvel said about not having guns on their toys for adult collectors of characters who use guns to kill people. I'm so tired of that. It's such a nonsense thing. It's just ridiculous. He has no guns. That's one of the biggest deal breakers for me. He doesn't not only have his guns, like the Marvel Legends one, they were glued in. He has no guns or holsters for his guns at all, and the holes are still there. I'm willing to bet that when they were making this figure and they got the word that, oh, you have to remove the guns, the people were pissed. Especially when when Marvel said, no, you know what, just leave those holes, those peg holes there, that's fine. How annoying is that? It's so annoying that he's missing his key feature. Yeah, we have the swords, we'll talk about the accessories, but no guns. It's ridiculous. Then the other thing that bothers me, and it's not a huge deal, but it's kind of a deal. His belt is molded into his crotch piece, so it's not moving anywhere. And this belt is sculpted on. So you will end up breaking the sculpt as you pose him. He doesn't rotate very well up there, but he rotates some. And so that looks terrible to me. That should definitely be a separate piece. Even if they wanted to connect it to the upper torso and just let it dangle down here, fine. This should probably be a separate piece too, though it's not as big a deal. This should definitely be a separate piece, because as soon as you pose it, you're breaking that sculpt. But otherwise, it looks good. I hate that the guns are missing. I hate that that's a sculpted piece, but otherwise they did a pretty good job with it. I have his arm out a little bit right there, so don't worry about that. Yeah, it looks good overall, but the guns being gone, I'll do a rating for the guns being missing. 5 out of 10 for the aesthetic, because that is something that's supposed to be there. It's a big something, and it's not. If I'm not going to count the guns, I'll go 9. It looks pretty good. It'd be much higher if this... I'd probably go 8, actually, because this shouldn't be sculpted. It should be a separate piece. All of his straps are sculpted. I don't mind it on the legs where it doesn't matter, but this one does. Okay, so now, accessories. We have a buttload of accessories. We have the 2 loose hands, like practical, like not doing anything kind of hands that come on them in the package. Then we get 2 fist hands, 2 thumb up hands, 2 pointing finger hands, 2 karate chop hands, 2 gripping hands, 2 gun holding hands, 2 secondary gun holding hands, and then 2 wide open hands. Or you could put like a drink or something in that one set. Anyway, lots of hands. For his face, I'm not going to name these eye plates because I don't know what to name them. We have the one set that comes on him in the package, and then 3 alternate sets of eye plates, and of course they're interchangeable however you like, so that's pretty cool. We get the knife in the little sheath on his leg, on him in the package that is on there. You cannot remove the knife, but you can remove the whole thing to have a sheath without a knife that pegs into his leg, and then you get the knife for him to hold. I guess they're just too small to actually make them functional. That's fine with me, I don't care. We have the scabbards that go on his back. Again, the handles, it's kind of like the knife situation. The handles are just pegged into the scabbard. You can remove those handles so it looks like he's drawn the swords, and then you do have the 2 katanas for him to hold, which are painted well enough. I like that. And then lastly, we get a little tool for helping to pop out his eye plates. So that's a good spread of accessories, except for the glaring issue of his guns not being included. So, if I'm including the guns, accessories, he's missing his important thing, despite all the other ones. 5 out of 10. If I'm not counting that, 9 out of 10, because that's a ton of accessories. If you don't mind the guns being missing, knock yourself out. You've got all the other accessories you need. You've got the gun holding hands. You're set. If you're going to provide your own, fine. But it's not 1/12 scale, so be aware. Anything that's Marvel Legends is going to be pretty big on him. So be aware of that. Okay, so let's talk about the articulation. They did a weird thing in the head, or at the top of the neck, I should say. They put a bent peg in there, which some companies do. They do that so in one direction you get better range. Unfortunately, that means in the opposite direction you get worse range. And in this case, I cannot get it to rotate to be the way it's supposed to be. Mine is stuck going to the side. I'm assuming it's supposed to be leaning backwards so he can look up, but I can't get it to rotate. I'm going to have to get some pliers or something and get it to do that. Just do freaking straight pegs with big balls. Straight pegs and big balls. That's all we need. I'm going to make a t-shirt of that. People will be very confused when I wear it in public. That's all you need. These are little tiny balls and a curved peg. And that's never going to get the job done. At least that's what I've been told. So I'm going to stop making jokes. I'm probably not. It doesn't work well. It's not terrible. I'll show you how the head functions. But it definitely could be better. There is a ball peg down here in the neck, by the way. It helps. A little bit of nuance posing. Never hurt anybody, so that's fine. So as far as the actual functional range of this, yeah, he can't really look up at all. He can look down a little bit. It does lean well enough, but those little balls have no range. Rotation's okay. They just have no range. It's a short little peg with little tiny balls, and it just doesn't give him enough range. It could be so much better without costing any more. It's irritating. Shoulders are on a butterfly that does lean up and down and go forward, and it's pretty well executed. It's one of the better butterflies I've seen lately, so I think that's okay. By the way, this knife, the one that comes on him in the package, the one that's all one piece with the knife and sheath, it pops off all the time when you're handling the figure, so be aware it's a nuisance. So the butterfly does function well enough, though he doesn't still have like a ton of range across his chest. It's still pretty limited, so it's fine, but it could be a lot better, I think. You get a hinge up here. This is a separate piece, so that'll raise up, and that works just fine. Perfectly okay with that. Better than horizontal on the hinge. You do get a ball peg on the shoulder, but because the butterfly moves around all over the place, that ball peg kind of doesn't have much to do, and doesn't really have much range anyway. So you do get your full rotation out of that, so that's fine. Bicep swivel is fine, and if you don't like the way that is because this bumps into the chest, you do have another option in that the elbow has a really nice double joint right there, but the top one does give you additional bicep swivel range. So that'll be helpful if you do provide your own guns for this guy. He'll be able to hold them, he'll be able to shoulder them pretty darn well. Between the actual bicep swivel, the butterfly, and the secondary swivel, that's pretty good. Alright, for the wrist, you get little tiny ball hinges. They work nicely, no issues there. Torso is extremely limited. It leans forward and back right there, and you can see how it breaks that sculpt. Not great. Side to side works pretty well. I like that. Rotation is basically non-existent because he's not spherical, he's not round, and they didn't give any room at all, so you basically get no rotation there. Lower torso, I can't quite tell what it is. I think it's a poorly implemented ball peg, but I don't know. It also might be a hinge with a swivel because he does lean a little bit. I'm trying to not use the top. That's what range he has forward and back. It feels like a hinge because the side to side just feels like it's wiggling, like it doesn't actually have any range at that lower part. And then you do get your rotation out of that, but that's also pretty limited. So his articulation, his torso is pretty crap, pretty garbage, actually straight from here all the way up to his neck. Doesn't work very well. Arms are pretty darn good. Now the hips, I know some people hate this type of joint because it makes the crotch look weird. I think it only does if you're staring at the crotch, so don't do that, weirdo. It works fine. It looks semi-weird, but once you start posing him, you're not even going to notice it, but he can get his legs out to almost the splits, and these guys are in the way, but if they weren't, can we get better range? Slightly. So you still get basically the splits. That's okay with me. Because of this joint that you think looks weird, it kicks all the way forward, no problem, and all the way back. That's okay with me. I am perfectly okay with that. That is fine. It's basically the way they do the new-ish Dragon Ball figures, except they started adding butt cheeks, which I don't care for. Okay, so thigh swivel works fine. Double jointed knee. Could have better range. The way they've done it, he's got a little bit more to go, but you can't do it, so that's a little bit irritating, but it should be okay. This is a more realistic knee joint anyway. Like, yeah, some people can get a deeper knee bend, but that's pretty good. That's okay. And then for the ankle, it's a little ball hinge, but you get good ankle rocker out of it because the bottom part of the pants is kind of a separate floaty piece. It's not really floaty, but it kind of is. And the ball hinges give him not that much range going back or forward. Toe joint is in the right place. It's not very stiff, but it'll work. So yeah, it's not great, but it's okay. His articulation is good enough. Like, if there weren't other problems with it, I'd be perfectly okay with that articulation. I mean, I guess technically I still am. It's fine. His torso is way too limited though, and his ankles could be a lot better. He's supposed to be kind of nimble and ninja-like, but this whole region is not executed well. Ankles could definitely be a lot better. Hips are great, arms are great, knees are good enough. I'll give it, for SH Figuarts, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. The torso is pretty booty. Don't like that, but otherwise it works well enough. And these guys do end up sticking out a lot after you pose them just because they've been flexed, but you can kind of... I think eventually they sit back down. They should resume or assume their original positioning. Should be okay. So yeah, this is a figure that is both really good and incredibly depressing at the same time. The guns being missing is ridiculous. The articulation not being great, not very great. And then just the little things like the strap not being an actual strap, that's a cost-saving measure, and it hurts the figure, so I don't like it. So yeah, I'm torn. If I'm not going to count the guns, I'm going to give this figure an 8 out of 10. A lot of accessories, a lot of good detail. It poses well enough. I'm mostly happy with it. It looks good sculpt-wise, proportions, it's all nice. If I'm going to include the fact that it's missing guns, which is the biggest thing, and the holes are still there for where the holsters are supposed to go, 6 out of 10? Deadpool without guns is like a Ninja Turtle without an old rat. It's you need that. So I don't like that at all. So you guys are gonna have to decide how you want to view it. You guys can let me know in the comment section below how you feel about it. Are you still gonna buy it? Did you still buy it? How do you feel? Let me know. We'll talk about it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.